Hey, welcome back to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. My name's Larry. Today's project, we're going to restore this set of beautiful furniture from the very early 1950s. I think you'll like it. Stick with us. Here we go. And we're looking at the top of the triple dresser, and you can see the staining that's on the surface, as well as some dark watermarks here, dark watermarks here. We have some pretty deep scratches, and then some darkness where the mirrors sat. We also have some surface damage to the drawers. The chest of drawers is in similar shape. Again, we've got this darkness and water stains all over the top. And then the single nightstand has just that mark on top of it. Now the owner tells me that this set belonged to her parents, and they bought it when she was just a little girl. She thought probably around the early 1950s. It's consistent. She says that at one time this was all blonde, which was a popular furniture finish back in the early 50s. And sometime in the 1970s, she herself stripped all of these pieces of furniture using home reform-bees, and all she's done since that time is apply tung oil. Now, as you know, tung oil comes two different ways. Regular tung oil, which is just an oil from the tung nut, but most of the time it's sold under the name tung oil, but it's in fact a penetrating finish, almost like a Danish oil. It's tung oil, some kind of a varnish, and usually mineral spirits to thin it out. So it'll be interesting to see how this reacts, this wood reacts to what we're going to do to it because of that finish history. It's nice to know that before we get started. So the first thing we're going to do is start to look for construction issues. We're going to do the repairs. When the repairs are all done, we'll strip it. When the stripping is all done, we'll start to refinish it. And she's given me, you can see it, it's actually a quilt rack that she'd like me to try to match the color to or get pretty close. So here we go. Here's the first drawer out. First thing I do is check to see if it's loose. By shifting back and forth, it's not. There are box joints here and secure dovetails in the front. The drawer is a solid wood construction. Turning it around, we have a wooden drawer runner. This is in good shape. It's not split. The glue blocks are still there. The bottom is in good shape with the exception of this area right here, which I'm going to try to scrape off. So this one doesn't really need any repairs. And I'm taking a look at that little spot right there. It almost looks like it might be old finish from the last refinishing. Maybe something splashed on here. So we're just going to scrape off the dirt there. And I think this drawer is ready to go back in the case. And we've discovered that this drawer here is missing the drawer runner. So let's make one. This is what the runners look like. This is from another drawer of the same piece of furniture. So what we'll do is just duplicate these measurements and we'll mill one up. Okay, we're set up in the other garage. First step is to cross cut it to length, 15 3/4 inches. Next we cut it to width, 2 inches. The next step is to dado this out 1 inch wide, 3/8 of an inch deep. I've set the blade height for 3/8 of an inch, and then I've set the fence to 1/2 inch. So we know it's 2 inches wide. We'll start our dado 1/2 inch from each ends and fill them. They do make dado sets that allow you to make basically the cutting blade wider. I have one, but I find for a small job like this, it's just as fast to run it through several times rather than change the blade set. And after just a couple of passes on the table saw, there we go. Just have to clean this up with a little chisel and some sandpaper and she'll be ready to install. Okay, we're back in the shop. We've got a 1-inch chisel here. We're just going to gently run it through here. Clean up our cut. And the next step is just to hit it with some sandpaper, just to make sure that we're nice and smooth. Nothing's going to catch. I think she's about ready to put in. Okay, it's time to install this. Before I installed it, I just took this over to the disc sander and rounded this part of it off to match the others. This just gets held in with some glue right here between these glue blocks and some glue and a single brad in the back. A real nice fit up top. Then we'll attach it with a single brad just like it was before. Bring the drawer back. And that should take care of it. I'll run a clamp across here, down underneath, let that glue set up, and this repair is done. That's all there is to it. We'll let the glue dry and she'll be ready to go back in. And you're looking inside one of the drawers. This is a really high quality set of furniture. It's made by Kohler in the USA. And you can see that this drawer here is actually lined in red cedar, aromatic red cedar. But there are some spots here that are probably from the last refinishing. And I've just taken some sandpaper to them. And cleaning them off for the lady so she's got a nice looking drawer. That's it. It's things like this that we do as we go through looking for repairs that give us a higher quality job and also make the final finishing a whole lot easier when you know that everything's been taken care of. One other tip, when you're checking drawers, if when you put them down, you hear that rattle, that'll tell you something's loose. In general, with a drawer this age and this construction, it's going to be the dovetails letting go. The glue just 70 years old. And maybe you can see as I push this, both sides the dovetails are loose. Let me bring you in. Okay, watch right here. See? The light wood is the side, the dark wood up here is the front. If you look at this joint back here, this is the back of the drawer. These box joints are tight, and if we start trying to knock those box joints apart, we're going to bust them for sure. So what I've decided to do, because both sides of the dovetails are loose, is I'm just going to spread them apart, work some glue in there, and clamp them back up. Again, the first rule here is do no harm, and the last thing we need to do is bust a drawer. Okay, here's our joint. I'm just using yellow glue. I'm going to force this open and get as much glue as I can on these edges of the dovetails on the sides. This way when the joint comes together, those sides have plenty of glue to bond on. I'm also going to put some glue on the back side. You can't see these. These are machine cut dovetails, so they actually look like little pockets, little round pockets. And I can get some glue in as well. There, I can hope you can see the insides of those joints right there. Okay, let's get the other side done and we'll clamp it up. And you can see we got good glue squeeze out, super good contact, good clamping pressure. Our dovetails are nice and tight. That's a good repair. I'm happy with it. Here's an example of a typical case repair that you'll come across. As I'm checking these drawer guides, I see that this one is very loose. So what I'm going to do is just take some compressed air and shoot out from underneath there. And then I'm going to use super glue just for speed, because it'll set up in just a matter of moments. And using the same nail in the same hole. And then tap the nail down. You may notice this little line here. This is the factory cuts that so that these nails don't split any farther. And then a little accelerator. Hold it down for about 10 seconds. And we're back in business. That's little things like that that we try to catch when we go through the case. Okay, that's about it for a good first day. We've got all the repairs done to the interiors of the cases, all the repairs done to the drawers. All the drawers have been cleaned. We sanded off any overrun from the last refinishing job, and also perhaps some of the oiling may have gotten out of hand, but regardless, it's all cleaned off now. So tomorrow we will tackle getting whatever finish is on here off, and then move forward from there. See you in the morning. Bye.
Another beautiful morning here in North Georgia. Let's get in the shop and get this stripping out of the way. First thing, let's check up on our repairs from yesterday. Nice and tight, rock solid, good repair. Let's check the other one. Very nice and tight, straight, gonna work great. Bingo. Okay, you're looking down at the top of the chest of drawers. We're gonna start to apply some stripper here. As we expected, there is very little finish on this, and the issue for me is how much tung oil is on here, and is it going to interfere with subsequent coats that we put on. But let's just see how we do right here. And I'm not seeing any of that black come up, so we may have to rely on oxalic acid for that, but that'll be a couple of steps away. This is just some 4/0 steel wool. And there is very little finish on it, which is probably one of the reasons it reacted to the moisture the way it did. Well, that's all that's coming up. And I think we've got a little bit of a lightening of the dark spots in the wood. I think those may be, perhaps like a mildew or something, but we'll see as we get deeper into this. But that's what we're up against. We're going to do all of it just exactly the same way. There's no sense of me filming it all. It's pretty tedious work. Plus, I'm going to have to put on a mask here, and it's difficult to talk. So let me get to it. If anything interesting comes up, I'll show it to you. Otherwise, I'll bring you back when I'm done stripping this. But we'll be here a while.
Well, it's been a couple hours, and we've got the chest of drawers all stripped. We're going to take a little break from stripping right now. I found some veneer damage down at the bottom on the leg, So let's take care of that right now.
Well, here's the damage, and you can see that the top piece of veneer is very thin, and underneath it here is this, secondary layer. It's missing a piece. There's two ways of handling this. You can fill this secondary layer with a filler, let it dry, and then just lay a single sheet of veneer over the top of everything, and it'll sand smooth. The other thing you can do is take this all off down to solid substrate, and then just double or triple up your layers of veneer to build the surface up. I've got some nice mahogany veneer, and we're going to get started on this right now. Well, I guess we passed quality control. The little disappointing thing that we are dealing with is that the discoloration in the wood did not lighten one iota with the stripping. So we're going to have to rely on the oxalic acid. Okay, I thought I'd take off my mask and close the door to the shop so you can see what I've been doing with these drawers. And I basically am just starting out by putting some stripper on the drawer front and working it in with some 4/0 steel wool. And maybe you can see, maybe you can't, but there's kind of a gray color, a gray opaque color that comes up into the mix. And I believe that's, the dried up oil that was applied to it. I also will see it in its opaque form in kind of a gummy way on the underside of the drawer sometimes. If I see that with this drawer, I'll point it out. And what I'm asking the stripper to do is to soak in and dissolve any of that oil that's oxidized and it's either laying on the surface or down inside the wood. And you can see that darkness right there. That's what I'm talking about. And then I'm removing it just with a rag. And then along the moldings, I'm taking this
little pointed triangular scraper and gently pulling out any of the goo that might be in there. And then we flip the drawer down, take our steel wool, dump it in some stripper. I always try to keep runs to a minimum, so I keep a rag back here. And we're just going to scrape off or scrub off. And you can see how dark it's getting? That dark gray, that's what's coming up. That's the oil, I believe, that's coming up. And running down the face of our drawer here. And it's going to be nearly impossible for you to see, but there is some of that dried gray oil down here on the bottom. And it pretty well gives right up as soon as the stripper hits it. And that's basically it. That's what I've been doing. I figure with this thing on its back, it's a good time to vacuum it out. Okay, we've got everything stripped. I did a couple of veneer patches. There was the one you saw and one that I didn't bother showing you. It was on the dresser. I took care of that. So tomorrow we will start the oxalic acid treatments on the top. Fingers crossed that that will work. And then we will continue on with repairs. There's some dents and scratches I want to take care of. And then we'll start thinking about refinishing. So thanks for hanging out with me today. This is always the toughest part of these jobs, is the stripping. Especially when you're dealing with 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 or 16 drawers. It gets pretty tedious. But we're through it. We'll see you in the morning. Bye.
Well, we sure have had our share of beautiful mornings here. Look at that sky. Let's get inside and get to work.
Good morning. Welcome back to day 3 of this refinishing this mahogany bedroom set. What I'd like to try to accomplish today is get the oxalic acid treatments done on the tops of the cases, and while those treatments are drying, we'll go through these drawers one by one and fix any chips, dings, or nicks on them. Make sure these drawers are completely ready for refinishing. Then tomorrow, when those have had a chance to dry, and I'm pointing to the cases, I'll show you in just a moment, then we can do the chips and dings on this. So let me turn you around and show you the setup we have. And I apologize for the light, we're in the shade there, but there's our 3 cases. I've taped along the edges to try to control some of the drips from the oxalic. So I'm going to go inside and get some water boiled, and we will mix up our oxalic and get to it. Okay, I've got almost a quart here of very hot water. We'll start adding the oxalic to it. And I pretty much just add it till it won't take any more. And then that solution is saturated at that temperature. And I'm starting to see some undissolved crystals on the bottom of the container, so I say that's good enough. Let's get some on. I just apply it with a foam brush, let it find its way into the wood. You can sand with like 120 before you do this to open the grain of the wood, but like I said before, I'm not sure how much sanding we're going to have to do on these pieces, and I'm going to save all the sandings I can for later in case we need them. What's encouraging is that the piece is absorbing the solution, so I think we probably got most, if not all, of that oil out of there. There we go. I got the rest of the pieces to coat, so I'm going to get that done right now. Well, you never really know what to expect with oxalic until
you're all done with the treatment, and sometimes even after you put the top coat on. But in this instance, fortunately, it looks like we're having some pretty good results right off the bat. This light spot here, I hopefully will be able to blend that in when we sand. But we've already got a fairly significant lightening of a lot of the stains, and the oxalic is still wet. So let's see, fingers crossed, maybe we did it. And we're looking at the top of one of the dresser drawers, and you can see we've got this deep bruise here that comes up to this gouge right here, and there's actually a little bit of wood separation here. Now, we can either fill that, and that's going to leave an issue with blending. We can sand it, but I believe these drawer fronts are veneered, and if we sand it, we're going to have to sand so deeply we may go through. Or we can try to steam it and raise the grain. Again, if this is the grain of the wood, my fingers, it's crushed. And if we can inject steam and water in there, sometimes we can spread them back out and raise that up. So that's what I'm going to elect to try to do first, is bring this up as high as we can. And if we can't get it perfect, at least we don't have to sand quite so much off. And this is just water. And that's just a damp cotton rag. Make sure your rags are clean if you're going to use this technique. You don't want to be blowing dirt or oil into your drawer front. That's just a regular iron set on high. Now, of course, you can't do this technique with a finish on, or you'll just destroy your finish. Okay, it's coming up. The difference in color you see is what remains of what didn't sand off. So let's give it a second shot and see what happens. You do have to be mindful of your veneer when you do this, that you don't melt the glue on the other side and, lead to a veneer bubble. But your judgment will usually keep you out of trouble. Okay, that's much, much better. This is really almost flush back here. We'll give it one more shot. Wow. See how nice and high that is now compared to where we were? I think that's a great result. Very good solution. Let's see what we can do with this little piece here. I don't have a lot of hope for it, but if we can raise it up, maybe we can patch it or something. Yeah, even that's come up. Good. We might be able to get away with just a little tiny bit of wax in there for that crack, and that'll be it. Well, I think that is a whole lot better. Let's give this one more shot and we'll sand it the rest of the way. Very nice. I'm very happy with that. Okay, that's a trick you can keep in your arsenal. That worked out very well. And we'll get some sandpaper on this drawer that we just steamed.
And I cannot feel any difference in texture here as far as the height of that dent. Nor here, although we do have a little bit of darkening where it oxidized inside. But that came right out. Cool, let's find another drawer. On the drawers that I don't find any damage on, all I'm doing is a very, very light sanding with 220. Just in preparation for the refinishing stage. I'm on a block so it stays nice and flat. And what's really nice is I'm not seeing the sandpaper gumming at all, which means we got that oil out. And on these curved edges of the molding, I just use my fingers to mold the paper to the shape. That's it. That's all there is to it. All right, we're on one of the dresser drawers and we find this right here. That's a pretty deep chip. That needs to be filled. You can't steam it open because it's missing the wood. So what I like to do if I'm filling before I seal the wood, just to kind of surround the area with some tape to keep any of the filler, excess filler from getting into the wood that doesn't need it. You certainly could just, smear some wood filler on there and let it dry and sand it back. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is just the way I do it. Now the owner of this set wants this ultimately colored in a kind of a medium walnut with a little bit of red in it. Kind of a mix between walnut and mahogany, but it's a pretty dark color, so we're going to fill this with a walnut fill. And I'm just using Timbermate, which is the fill that I normally use. It's water-based, pretty easy, and I've had pretty good luck with it. Now by doing it this way and filling to the level of the tape, you're going to get a couple of thousandths extra height, which isn't a bad thing, because it does shrink back a little bit when it dries. And we'll just leave that to set for a little while, and then we'll pull the tape off and sand it flush. And you see the darker areas where it's still a little bit wet. We're just going to pull this tape off, and I'll set this off to dry before I sand it. I'll just keep going with the other drawers. And there's really no hurry to get the tape off, frankly. And then when that dries completely, we'll light sand it, and that'll take care of that. And here's our little fill. Take some 220 on a block. That's it. Nice and flat. Okay, let's rinse off the oxalic and see how we did. Okay, I think we've had some real good success here so far. Most of the darkness is up. We still have a little bit of darkness here where the mirror sits, and then this ring is still faintly visible. I think what I want to do is set this out in the sun and let the sun have a go at it as it dries it out, and then we'll reevaluate it and see if we think it needs another coat or just a sanding. And I will do the same on the other pieces, and I'll show you the result. Here's the top of the chest of drawers, It looks really, really good. Here's the top of the dresser. It also looks really good. We just have the ghost of this ring here. I'm going to see if that'll sand out. I'd much rather sand this lightly than re-oxalic it. The last thing I want to do is create any veneer or other issues regarding the water. But that looks good. This looks good. This one was really never dark. All we have is this light spot here, and we'll just take care of that when we color it. We're going to leave these out in the Georgia sun for an hour or two, let them get good and dry, and then we'll go on from there. In the meantime, while the oxalic was cooking, I've got all these drawers sanded and all the repairs, the ding repairs, taken care of, and they're looking really good. So we're making great progress. Okay, we've given this an hour or so to dry out in the sun. I think it's time to sand it. I'm going to use 150. We'll see how it comes out. I'm really hesitant to do another full oxalic treatment. I just don't like wetting the furniture that much if I can avoid it. But let's see how the sanding comes out. And this is the only real mark that remains. And I think you can see that's just about completely out, and I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm going to sand the cases of all three pieces, and then I will move forward from there. I think we're looking pretty good. Keep going. Okay, it's the end of another hot day, but we got a lot done today. We got the cases oxalic. We've got all those stains that were on the tops of both the dresser and the chest of drawers gone. So that is huge good news. We've also got the final sanding and repairs done to the drawer fronts. What we have left to do is to go over the cases of all three pieces of furniture, actually. Make sure that we cover all the chips and dings and cracks that might be there to get that all ready to be refinished. And then after that, we'll start on the finishing. So I guess I'll see you back in the shop tomorrow for day, I forgot, is it 3 or 4? Anyways, we're still moving. See you tomorrow. Good morning, welcome back. It's day 4 of this refinishing project. Hey, I edited the video last night. We're already up to 40 minutes of edited content. So I'm going to break this right here, make this part 1. We'll continue with part 2, which will be the refinishing. So from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards, thanks for watching. Take good care, and remember, it's just wood color and some shiny stuff, and stand by for part 2.